You are listening to the Critical Mass Radio Show, Orange County's business talk show, focused on exploring topics of interest to CEOs who are leading middle market companies. With your host, Richard Franzi.
Hello and welcome to Orange County's longest running business talk show and podcast. And yes, I am your host, Rick Franzi. And do we have a special version of the show for you today? Why do you ask? Fair question. First, we have two guests instead of one, which is cool. And second, we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into the state of manufacturing that exists here in our beautiful Orange County, which isn't always associated as a manufacturing base, but in truth, it's quite robust. I have two people who can help us to really understand that because of their unique positions in the marketplace. One you can see is Darren Dives. He's the VP of Sales. And the other is Chandan Shiroy, who is the VP of Operations. Both work at S&D Industrial Tool Supply. I've invited them in because I'm really curious to get an update on what's going on in the manufacturing world here in Orange County. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you for having us, Rick.
Yeah, see, they're all excited to be here too.
Absolutely.
Let's start with one of the more interesting subjects that I'm sure for each of you, and I'm going to ask Chandan, you start first. Tell me a little bit about your path to S&D Industrial Tool Supply. What was the inspiration for joining the company a couple of years ago?
So, there were a couple of reasons. S&D's long-standing relationship and reputation in the marketplace, over 40 years of trust and relationships that they had built with their customers. Second thing that attracted me was the integrity in which they service their customers. Their customer-centric approach that they took, where the customer was always put at the center and front of everything. So these values align with what I always did in my past life. When I worked as an applications engineer, when I worked as an operations manager at other companies. So these values align with what S&D had to offer, and that was one of the reasons for an inspiration, as you called it, to join S&D.
Okay, so as the VP of Operations, I assume you have some kind of operational responsibility at a very high level. What is it that you do all day?
So on a day-to-day, we are essentially a distributor for a lot of product lines. And so my job is to make sure that I'm talking to the vendors, making sure the supply chain is not affected, because if the supply chain is affected by any sort, day, and form, it's the customers who suffer. We can't provide them because we stock products for our customers and we supply to them as needed. So one of the biggest things I have to do is make sure the supply chain is always filled, the pipeline is always full, the customers are taken care of, and they are not waiting for their products.
So we have an industrial tool supply distributor here. So we have one part of it represented, which is the operations. Now we have the sales side. So maybe Darren, you can give us a flavor for, because you guys joined around the same time a couple of years ago. Well, what motivated you to join S&D?
Kind of at a crossroads. I've been in the industry for a better part of 35 years. I started in a machine shop as a young kid and kind of grew up in the industry, part of a family business, and branched out actually on my own business for a small time, about a part of 10 years. And then I found myself on the sales side of the industry, first as a manufacturer's rep, and then in distribution sales for about 10 years. That's when I met Jim and Sam, who are the founders of S&D. And they courted me for several years. And it wasn't until a point when the timing was right where I decided to make the jump and come on board. That was 2 years ago. So in my role today, I am the vice president of sales. I oversee the sales staff, and then I support the day-to-day operations of the business.
So for those people that may not be familiar with what an industrial tool supply distributor does, Darren, maybe you could help us to understand who your clients are, what's your niche, what problems are you solving for them? And then of all of your clients, who are the type of client that really gets the most benefit or ROI from working with your company?
Yeah, our typical customer base is machine shops. So we service the greater Los Angeles area, so LA County, Orange County, Inland Empire. And we support those shops that are typically machining of a variety of materials, utilizing CNC machine equipment. And what we're kind of the conduit between the customer and the manufacturers that actually make the supplies that we sell. So cutting tools, work holding, your everything you need to operate a machine shop pretty much can be funneled through us. We consider ourselves to be fairly highly technical sales representatives. So we're on site with the customers on a regular basis, basically lending support, whether it's selecting a simple cutting tool to complex specialty tooling. That's something we offer. We're constantly looking at areas to improve process, reducing cycle times, improving tool life, overall trying to reduce our customers' manufacturing costs. So that's the value that we bring to the table, I would say. We're not salesmen by any stretch of the imagination. I've never prided myself on that. I've always been a problem solver. I come in, I provide a solution, I add value, and then in turn I get your business. And that's what we kind of what the company's been founded on and what we pride ourselves in. As far as the type of customers that benefit from what we bring, I think it's the ones that value and they see what we have to offer, that we bring that added value. We become an integral part of their business, and they know they can rely on us to bring us their problems and come to them with a solution. I've had a lot of customers tell me that, I call you, I give you my problem, I go about my day, and before I know it, you're coming back to me with a solution, options, whatever it might be, and then we move on to the next thing. So I think that's kind of where we need to be recognized for that, and that's those type of customers are the ones that we do the best with.
I resonate very well with the idea that salespeople are problem solvers. I've had a long career in sales, and I've always thought of myself that way, Darren, that I'm really here to solve a problem. If I can, I would like you to buy from me. If I can't, I wouldn't expect you to buy from me.
Exactly.
I also think entrepreneurs are problem solvers. That's why they start companies. And so my assumption or belief is that S&D Industrial Tool Supply is really providing to your clients the consumables that they need to replenish on a regular basis as they go through their manufacturing process.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. There's some things when you get into work holding, tool holdings, and things of that nature, those aren't necessarily perishable. But yes, the bulk of what we supply are the perishable cutting tools used to in the machining processes.
Yeah, because these machining processes are high precision cuts. The tools need to be as sharp as possible. For those of you that understand this, you understand it. For those of you who maybe haven't had a background in manufacturing, there's a lot of sophisticated work being done here in Southern California to support the industries that require it. I've been in Southern California and Orange County in particular long enough to remember what a large footprint aerospace manufacturing has had in our county. But in our earlier conversations, Darren, you sort of helped me to understand that that's been changing over the years. And maybe you could help us to understand what currently exists as far as the manufacturing footprint here in Orange County.
Yeah, I would definitely say that aerospace is still the predominant force here. When we say aerospace, I think Chandan and I talked, it was almost you got to separate the space and aerospace. We do have several companies that specialize, I would say, space exploration that are located here in Southern California, and they feed a tremendous amount of work to our local customers. So this market would be predominantly considered a job shop market, I'd say. So a lot of machine shops, they're not necessarily specialized in one type of work. They do a variety of work for multiple different customers dealing with different types of materials. And that's why I'd say we come in where we're a vital resource because it's always changing. They're getting different applications, materials you're not familiar with, and that's where we come in and lend that additional support to allow them to be successful. And here we see a lot of, in addition to aerospace, medical, oil and gas, commercial, there's a wide variety, but again, the space and aerospace are probably the most predominant what we see in this market.
And you talked about CNC cutting tools, and the materials that they're working with are really hard materials designed to withstand whatever may be happening in space or in defense. And so the cutting tools have to be really robust to be able to do the accurate, high precision work that the clients are expecting of them.
Yeah, that's correct. We see everything from wood to aluminum to your high temp alloys and everything in between. So, and that's kind of what we bring to the table is going in with our wealth of knowledge and the resources we have available, we work with them to provide the best solution to get the best outcome for our customers.
And I don't mean this in any way that sounds derogatory, but your firm is really middlemen between the manufacturers and the manufacturers of the consumables and the parts and the manufacturing and job shops that need them. And
Correct.
so, Chandan, I'm wondering if you could help us to understand, with all that's been in the headlines and the news about tariffs and et cetera, how is that impacting your firm as the kind of the go-between between both parties?
Yeah, as you mentioned, we are like the go-between. So we are funneling a lot of the stuff that we don't want our customers, in the sense, to feel impacted by. That is, we have been talking on daily basis with our vendors, how we should move forward with the tariffs, because they have been changing. They're definitely on our radar. But at the same time, we are building more flexibility in the way we do our purchasing, the way we replenish our stock. Also, we are treating these tariffs as another resource to bond with our customers more, to strengthen our relationships by having open lines of communication, letting them know that, again, we are in with you on this one. We feel your pain because we are feeling the pain also. But we will get through this by making sure we are cutting out all the extra noise that you don't need to worry about. We are only going to give you what you need. So they could be, for example, they could be using 15 sources to manufacture a component. Then at this time, myself, Darren, will sit down with them and say, okay, out of the 15, we can narrow it down to these 5 suppliers, and they can still source you these 15 products instead of these other 10, so that your impact is minimal. So this is where we come in and help them by understanding that you don't have to worry about those other 10, because we have already narrowed it down, and these 5 people can source you these 15 products. So in a way, it strengthens our relationship with our customer, because we are looking out for them. So yes, the tariffs have made an impact. It's in constant news, and we have opened the lines of communication for our customers.
And that's a great perspective. And so, Darren, I'm going to pick at this a little bit more with you, because you and your team are on the front lines of
Correct.
this. And as I understand the business, many times your clients have already bid the job. They're expected to do the work for a stated price to their client, and now you're coming in, maybe in the case of a tariff, with a higher price for some of the consumables than they had anticipated. How does that? What position is that putting you and your team in, to be sort of the messenger of what might be perceived as really bad news in the eyes of your client?
Yeah, like you had said, we are essentially, at the end of the day, a middleman. I think it's great value, though, as a middleman, because, again, we have such a wealth of resources behind us. And why not use a central resource for that, to be able to coordinate everything that goes on? With regards to the tariffs, it seems to be changing daily. Chandan's definitely more in tune with the logistics behind it. I'm the one in the field that when I walk in the door, I get yelled at, not necessarily yelled at, but questioned. We made a habit in the past of alerting our customers anytime we're going to have a price increase from a manufacturer. And it seems like since the COVID days, those happen much more regularly than they ever did before. Same thing with the tariffs. We're sending them notifications, letting them know how we're handling it. And for the most part, it's well received. At least we have the communication. But then in turn, we do get a little backlash towards us. And again, there's only so much we can do to absorb it. Like Chandan said, it's a matter of us working with our customers, finding if we can come up with alternative solutions that maybe are not being impacted by the tariffs, or possibly more economical solutions that maybe still are assessing a tariff, but, in the end, they're not going to be paying more. So that's, again, when I keep going back to the added value we bring, that's something we can do as a distributor, working with our customers, bringing options to the table, and essentially solving problems, like we said. And these tariffs are going to be a big problem for us for a while.
Great answers, guys. And I see that Haley has queued up a comment from one of our listeners. And Haley, if you can bring Logan's thought onto the screen. Logan asks, are any of the tool manufacturers that supply S&D considering building new facilities in the U.S. to avoid these tariffs? Which I think he kind of read my mind, guys, because Chandan, that's where I wanted to go with you from an operations perspective. Thank you, Logan. in consideration when you're talking to your manufacturing partners who maybe don't build in the U.S., are they, based on what's happening with the tariffs, are you seeing conversations of maybe bringing that manufacturing into the U.S.?
Well, as of right now, it's a wait and see approach. There's a lot of negotiations that we don't know about that are happening in the background with a lot of these. So a lot of our vendor suppliers, as of right now, have taken a wait and see approach. Some of them have already had some kind of manufacturing in the States. And what they have done is they're looking at possibly moving more of the manufacturing in the States or moving it to countries that are not as impacted by some of the tariffs that are coming in. Because keep in mind, a lot of these suppliers have not just one country as a manufacturing, they have multiple plants spread across the world. A part could be made here. So they are saying, okay, if we are getting impacted on this side, I'm going to move that part over here because it's easier, because there's already trained people, trained machineries. So they are doing a lot of, it's like chess right now. Everybody's trying to read the other person's mind, and they're moving the chess piece in the right place. One thing that has happened is absolutely there has become a increasing collaboration between us vendors and our suppliers. Every day, I think I speak to 3 or 4 of my suppliers. Before we would chat maybe once in a month, and now it's an ongoing everyday phone call just to feel the landscape. Hey, what's coming in? How much stock do you have? That's not going to be tariff. So it's increasing the kind of collaboration. It's bringing us a lot closer. We are all working in this together. This is I'm not seeing this as a problem. I'm seeing this as an opportunity to collaborate. And when great minds think together, there's always a solution. And I got this, as me and Darren always say, there's much more smarter people out in the world that are probably thinking better than us, and they will probably come up with better solutions than we can. We're just a small piece of the puzzle, sir. So.
Because of your professional backgrounds, and especially being with a supplier like S&D Industrial Tool Supply, you understand the concept of supply chains. But I think it was first really became evident to people in this country, the idea of supply chains, when COVID hit and we recognized shortages and things that were happening. And it feels like to me now, this whole idea of where is something made, which maybe wasn't in people's minds or in the zeitgeist, has become, through this tariff conversation, much more prevalent with people who aren't in the industrial tool supply business or in the supply chain business in general. Would you agree with that, guys?
Absolutely. And I think people are keeping a close watch as to where the product is being sourced from. In the past, you would always hear, when I was out on the machine shop floor working, hey, I don't want the made in so-and-so from this. I prefer the made in Japan or made in Germany or made in USA, because certain countries was there something about quality back in the day. This is going back into 20 years ago. Now it doesn't matter because they're all made and sourced. Nobody really was caring, and now all of a sudden everybody cares where it's coming from again. So it's like a full circle coming back. It's like So it's been an interesting last few days and it's just like everything is like, okay, everybody's looking at the label once again when they didn't care about it before. They just wanted tools and they wanted the cheapest price, and now they care about it.
Yeah, quality was assumed, right? Regardless of the sourcing country,
exactly.
Quality was going to be in place because the quality systems globally had picked up and strengthened. But your answer leads me to a question that I want to kind of point towards, Darren, which is, you said earlier in the interview that you kind of grew up as a tradesman and in this space, and that's fantastic because you have a wealth of knowledge that sometimes you can only get from experience, right?
Yeah.
But what are your clients telling you about their ability to find people like you when you first started in this industry, in the trades? Are they plentiful, or what are you hearing from your clients?
Unfortunately, it's a dying breed. I'm sorry to say it, but that's the harsh reality. In prep for this interview, I guess I'll say, I had some intimate conversations with a few of my customers, and it's funny that amongst every single one of them, I asked, what is your biggest struggle with basically operating your business, not only specific to Orange County, but just your day to day. And everyone pinpointed it's personnel. It's either finding qualified people, retaining people. What we've seen in this industry is there's a lot of people, the talent, the old school guys that have been here for 30, 40 years are now aging out and they're retiring. And there's not a lot of young blood coming in the industry that's interested in doing this trade. So I think we need to rejuvenate that and spark an interest to get people these jobs in manufacturing. Historically, they're well-paying, they're stable jobs with a lot of opportunity to grow. Unfortunately, I just think our schools haven't done a great job of promoting them. When I was in high school, I had 3 years of metal shop. We had an auto shop. We had a lot of trade-related classes that guys got out of high school and went straight to work. And unfortunately today, that's a little bit frowned upon. Everybody's got to go get a 4-year degree. So I think that's, as a society, we kind of have to rethink that. But it would be nice to see more people get interested, more younger people get into the industry. Because again, in order for us to carry on, I think that's what it's going to require. So,
you know better than I, because you're in the shops more than I am. But when you talk about a CNC machine, or when you talk about going into a manufacturing site in Southern California, you're really talking about going into a computer center, because these equipments are programmable. They're highly intelligent. They can be remotely programmed to do the kind of multi-accessing machining, et cetera, that they do. So really, tradesmen in this industry in many ways are computer scientists to some degree, at least programmers, because they're working with equipment that is highly intelligent. Is that a fair thing for me to say from your perspective?
The equipment is, I agree with that. Obviously in today's age, manual machines, every shop's got a Bridgeport machine, push back in the corner for doing, little odds and ends. It's a glorified drill press. But yes, most of the shops are CNC. But again, it still requires a high level of skill to set up and operate and troubleshoot and keep those machines running. People have a stigma that a machinist is nothing but a button pusher. I push the green button, I run a part, I take the part out. Yes, that's part of it. But during that, you have to make sure you're holding tolerances, you're holding surface finishes. Again, you're constantly troubleshooting tooling, chip control issues. There's a whole variety of things that there's a knowledge base there that is missing. And again, it's present. It's just those guys are not as prevalent as they used to be. And we got to do a better job of capturing that tribal knowledge and passing it down if we're going to be able to compete and grow. We talk about bringing more of these jobs back and more work. And majority of my customers don't complain about, I don't have work. It's just a matter of, I don't have the people here to support additional work. So
yeah, and business is supply and demand. In my opinion, well, you guys know, because you're in between that supply and demand, right. But it's supply and demand, and the demand for machinists versus the supply is imbalanced. I don't know what the average age of a U.S. machinist is in this country, but I have to believe it's pretty advanced in age. And so if you're looking
mid 50s, early 60s, but
okay. Okay. And so there's going to be a growing need as those people hit retirement age, et cetera. And so if young people are looking for a career that they can be in their 50s and 60s and still be gainfully employed, being a machinist may be a very good way to go.
Yeah. And it's just not a machinist. There's a lot associated with that too, within the manufacturing customers we support, between quality and engineering and programming. There's a lot of other areas. It's just not the guy that stands in front of the machine. It's everything else associated with that. There's opportunity everywhere.
Yeah, this has been great. I told you at the top of the show, ladies and gentlemen, we had a special show planned for you with two great guests. So if someone would like to do one of two things: one, maybe find you guys on LinkedIn, or two, look up the company S&D Industrial Tool Supply. How do they find you, and where do they go to find the company?
So best way to connect is through LinkedIn. You can just look up Chandan Shiroy or Darren Dives. We're both on LinkedIn. Our website is www.sndindustrial.com. And so we are also on Instagram, Facebook, all the social media handles, and we are there. So we can definitely connect. We'd love to chat with you. If you're a customer, whether you're a customer, supplier, we'd love to, or just somebody just looking to chat on like what we are doing today. We are always there. We're always there to help and chat and connect.
Well, I want to thank you both for your time today, and I really appreciate your willingness to come in and give us an insight from your perspective on Orange County-based manufacturing. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. Thank you both.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
the
Rick.
opportunity.
Yeah, and thanks to the audience. You're a part of Orange County's longest-running business talk show and podcast. This episode will join our catalog of over 1,500 interviews that we've done over the years of doing this show. If you're in Orange County and you're an entrepreneur, or maybe you're a nonprofit leader and you would like to share your story the way Darren and Chandan have done, then just reach out to me on LinkedIn. If we're not connected, I'm Rick, R-I-C, Franzi, F-R-A-N-Z-I. Send me a connection request, put a message in there you'd like to be a guest. And between Haley and myself, we'll be happy to get you ready to be a guest. If we're already connected on LinkedIn, just send me a direct message or an email, and Haley and I will work with you to get you ready to be on the show and have some fun together. So until the next time we all have a chance to be on the show, I hope each of your business decisions will move your company in a positive direction.